When it comes to the mobile game market, there is a plethora of endless runner games, some of which have now been ported over to PC and even consoles. The newest one, though, is Buff Night, now known as Buff Night Advance, and it's kind of a mix of an endless runner, a clicker game, and an RPG. But does this game truly slay the mighty dragon, or should it just be left in the castle dungeon to rot? If you're familiar with endless runner or clicker style games, you'll probably feel right at home with Buff Night Advance. You play as either a knight or a sorceress, basically melee or ranged attacks, and your goal is to go through the levels slaying all the enemies. But your character just keeps moving no matter what, and you have to worry about all the enemies as they're coming straight at you. If an enemy gets too close, they end up doing damage to you, and your goal is to try to get to the end of the level, slay the level boss, and then move on to the next stage before, of course, you end up dying yourself. Buff Night Advance is one of those games you have to be paying attention to the entire time you're playing. Managing not only your health and magic, you also have to make sure that you're keeping an eye on what enemies are coming up next, figuring out what works best for each type of enemy, whether it be the straight up melee attacks or whether you should mix in your magic. Your health is located in the upper left corner of the screen, so keeping an eye on both of that, as well as your character running through, can sometimes be difficult. Throw in the fact that every one of the different things you can do in the game is mapped to a different button, and things can definitely get out of hand very quickly. Besides just your main attack and magic, you can also knock enemies up into the air and actually use the left stick in order to keep delivering hits as long as they're airborne. You'll also have to break pots and barrels as well as unlock treasure chests in order to get money that you can then use in the shop, as well as items like keys and diamonds that you can use to enchant items as well as upgrade your stats. In a game like this, you're going to be dying over and over and over again, with your hope being that you can get a little bit farther and get enough money after your death to then go into the shop and be able to buy some new equipment. You'll have your melee or main weapon, whether it be the stick for the sorceress or the sword for the knight that you can upgrade, which will of course upgrade your attack, and then all your other items like your hat, your shield, your armor and pants, boots, all increase your defense. And every time you buy one, the next one for the next upgrade costs significantly more money. Obviously, the farther you get into the game, the enemies not only get tougher, but will drop bigger amounts of money. So by the time you get to the end of the game, it's quite easy to get millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of coins in order to fully upgrade your arsenal. Besides buying your equipment, you'll also get the diamonds for enchantment, which will add different bonuses to the items that you have equipped. And you can actually enchant the same item multiple times to get the exact things that you want. Now these are buffs like increased magic, increased health, or absorption, or knockback, or various other things that will help you. So mixing and matching which ones that you want, or building up one particular one with all your enchantments may end up benefiting you in the end. Besides the equipment that you have on, you'll also find artifacts that you can get from defeating bosses and find throughout various different levels. And the artifacts, you can have 3 equipped at a given time, do all sorts of other little bonuses and buffs, such as finding better loot inside of chests, increased health, increased magic, and of course increased damage for both melee and your magic abilities. You'll also have the sub-weapon or sub-items. These are like a scroll that you can summon by pressing the R2 button to rain down rocks on top of the enemies coming up, a throwable bomb, a potion that fills both health and magic to full instantly, as well as my 2 favorites, the 2 medallions, the blue and the orange one, with the blue one allowing you to do for a short period of time infinite charge-ups. You can just easily, instantly charge up your weapon and be able to blast it out, and having this for just that period of time can be either life or death in certain situations. The orange medallion will actually charge you forward for a small period of time, just blasting and barreling your way through all the enemies in your path. This is a great way if you're able to get multiple of these orange medallions to get through a level very fast, as I actually was able to do so on a couple occasions, being able to just barrel my way, building up a ton of money and getting right to the end boss. Even though the game has RPG elements and is in a fantasy setting, there really isn't much storyline going on. You're basically just told there's a princess at the end of the game and you're gonna save her. and that's pretty much it. There aren't any other really game modes or anything else to jump into. There are 12 levels in total, and of course each level gets significantly harder, so you're going to have to build up your money and build up your items so that you can have better equipment in order to take out that next level. On the visual side of things, you can see that the game uses a 8-bit style to it, and there are some nice sprites for the various different enemies that you end up battling throughout the game. Some are relatively generic skeletons and nice, but I did particularly like a few of like the ogres and the double-headed troll and the dragons that you end up fighting later on in the game. The music also goes along with the entire 8-bit motif, though I'm not sure if it was originally composed for the game or came from elsewhere, but the 8-bit renditions of songs that are in the game are overall okay. Thankfully, the game ran perfectly fine. Even at the most hectic battles, I wasn't running into slowdown or crashing of any sort. Some of the later bosses in the game, this is a big key because you have to have your timing down in order to kind of figure out how you can actually do damage to some of the harder bosses of the game. Overall though, the game's pretty straightforward. There isn't a whole lot of depth. The RPG elements that are added in for additional stat points and such, as well as the clicker elements of earning enough money to upgrade various equipment so that you can continue on. Even with all of it, it's pretty simple. If you're expecting anything more than just an endless runner with a few little extra ingredients sprinkled in, you're gonna end up being disappointed. While I did have some moments of fun with Buff Knight Advanced, there isn't a whole lot of depth here for you to really sink your teeth into. It's one of those games that definitely benefits from playing in short bursts, and I'm sure that's why it worked really well on mobile devices. But on the PlayStation 4, it honestly just feels like a grind most of the time. In the end though, I'm going to be giving Buff Knight Advanced a 3 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.